Hey everyone, welcome. It's Sunday, the 6th, no, the 5th of July. Wow, I missed up my days. The 5th of July, 2026. Yesterday was the 250th anniversary of the United States, um, and the heat wave. This morning I woke up and the air was fresher. And I hope it stays that way because that heat was unbearable. It felt like Florida, no offense to Florida, but it felt like Florida here in Pittsburgh. Anyway, so welcome to the message. Thanks for watching. This is today we end the blesseds of the Sermon on the Mount, and we're in verse 10, Matthew. Blessed are those who were persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And I, I want to talk to you about some words here. The first of all, the word righteousness. What if I were to say to you that the word righteousness has nothing to do with your religion? It's not talking about being blessed, being blessed. We just say it different because it's in the Bible. Being blessed because you're persecuted for Christian. We have a whole bunch of martyrs who actually some people even intended to be martyrs because they wanted to be blessed. I mean, how sick is that, right? Like, anyway. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I also want to say that heaven, at least for some of us who think this way, heaven starts now. My eternity has already started. Doesn't mean that I'm living in bliss. It means that my eternity, my connection with my eternity has already started. And so I'm just, I'm working out, I'm working it all out for the rest of my life. And then when I'm dead, will there be a house on a street of paved with gold? I mean, I tend to think that's allegorical or at least a metaphor. But in any case, all right, it doesn't matter. I'm a human. I'm flawed. I'm just a guy with a brain and and a book, lots of books, but this one in particular. So, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. All right. Um, what does it mean? What does righteousness mean? Oh, I went forward at the end of a meeting. I prayed a prayer, and now they call me a Christian, and I'm righteous because I'm covered. I'm covered by the blood of the Lamb. That makes me righteous. Okay, um, but it doesn't make you act righteously. And how will anyone know that you're righteous unless you tell them? So I don't think that people have any way of knowing that you're righteous unless it's your behavior. And if it's your behavior and people persecute you for righteous behavior or righteous qualities, that that should be an encouragement to you. Persecution isn't just disregard. Persecution isn't someone just looking at you and saying, I think you're an ass, or that's stupid, or I disagree with you. That's not persecution. I hear a lot of Christians claim, oh, there's anti Christian persecution. No, not really. The no one is doing that except these crazy people who go into churches and shoot. And okay, But that's not persecution. Persecution would, you know what? One persecution, I think persecution is putting the Ten Commandments. I'm being political now. Putting the Ten Commandments in a classroom. I'm a, I'm a, I'm a ordained minister. I don't want some school teacher teaching my child what to believe about God. And oh, the Ten Commandments. We want to read the Bible. What good is it? Just reading it. Because then when you read it, there are questions, and there are always questions. You have them too. So I don't want that teacher. I don't want the Ten Commandments in school. I want my kid to learn math and science, even philosophy. And among those philosophies, philosophy of religion, all of them. But the persecution would be, oh, we have the Ten Commandments, and this little kid who's a Muslim or a Hindu or something has to listen to this. And their parents have to help them sort things out when they get home, when all that's doing is interfering with their instruction, the whole reason for school. All right, that was a tangent. We're done. What do I mean by righteous? Well, Jesus just spent the last verses telling us what it means to be righteous. And these are the behaviors that would attract, if you did them and you attracted persecution, that it would count. Okay, let's read them. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Get it? Did you catch it? It's right in the middle of this pattern. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, and he goes on, he explains, blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad. All right. So the persecution is listed there, but it's also insults. Being insulted isn't persecution. Persecution is putting you in jail. Persecution is kicking you out because of who you are. That's persecution. Burning witches was persecution of witches. I don't see any Christians being burned at the stake now. I don't see any Christians being fired. I mean, it might happen somewhere, right? But I don't see anybody being fired because they're Christian. They might be fired because they're obnoxious at work. Like that. And geez, they didn't even fire that woman who refused to give marriage licenses to gay people when it was first, like in 2015, when it was first legalized. It was her job. She was an employee. And she refused to do her job. You're fired. If you don't do your job, you're fired. But it's my religion. You know, I want to tell you a story. Because, you know, you can be persecuted. It feels like it's because of your religion, but it turns out it's just because you're a jerk, or because you're a jagoff, or because you are unable to function in society. So back in the don't even remember what year it was. It was the year that Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. What year was that exactly? That the before Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, I taught in New Jersey for a year, and I had many Muslim students, Islamic students, Middle Eastern students in my classes. Many, many. And my one class happened on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon. And if you know anything about Islam, Friday at noon is big prayer time. So one of my students came to me and he said, Teacher, I have a problem. I'm going to miss class on Fridays because I'm going to the mosque to pray. And I said, okay, well, let's just figure this out. Let's sit down. He came to my office and class participant. We went to the syllabus, and class participation counted for a certain percentage of his grade, and he would be losing 30% of that. So he would be the best he could get for class participation would be 66, 67%. And so we figured that out. I said, well, you could still get a B if you do well enough for the rest of this stuff, but you understand that missing 30% of the class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you miss every Friday, it's going to cost you. And I had to take attendance. I mean, it was part of the school. I said, it's going to cost you that. You can't participate in a class that you're not there. And he said, but it's my religion. Now, this young man could have set me up for persecuting him, right? And he probably felt persecuted. And I understand. I understand. And I said to him, I said, well, let's just think about this. I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, well, first of all, I asked him, why did you take this class? And he said, it was the only one available. Okay, all right. It's the only one available. So you didn't have a choice. It's not your fault. You didn't pick this class. It was the only one available, the only time for you to get this class. So what I think you should do is this is not a question of school policy or my class policy. It's a question of your religious policy. And here's the question. Here's what I want you to do. Go to the mosque. Talk to someone, a mullah, for example, someone who's an authority, someone who can give advice. And ask them, what does Allah want you to do? Does he want you to take a lower grade and experience this because the only class available was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon? Or would he have you pray a little earlier or a little later and honor God by being a good student? His face completely changed. Teacher, you're a Muslim. I wasn't a Muslim really, but and I'm not. But it just showed me, and it was beautiful. And I said to him, I said, well, uh, not with a capital M, which meant that I, professed Islam as my faith, and that Muhammad, there's only one God, that's Allah. That I have no problem with. Allah means God. It's like there's only one God. As a Christian, I was fine with that. But and Muhammad is his prophet, like the prophet. That I just Muslims believe in Jesus. They just believe he was a prophet. So, all right, that's the thing. Did you catch it? It's like, all right, I'm in this situation, and how do I respond? The letter of the law, the letter of the rules said that in society, in my class, he was going to lose 30% of his class participation grade, which probably counted, if I don't remember how I figured it out, but it probably counted for, I don't know, 20% of his grade. So a third of 20% is not a lot. In fact, he probably still could have gotten an A if he aced everything. But but that was the situation, right? And then the religion that said we pray on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. One of our prayers is noon. No, I was between a rock and a hard place myself as a professor because I'm thinking, well, it's this kid's religion, right? But on the other hand, I need to be fair to everybody. So my telling him, no, you have to come to school. You choose not to, it's going to hurt you. That wasn't persecution. I don't have any problem with faithful Muslims. No problem. It was, you're asking me to change the standards of my class, which is not a religious environment. It's not a Muslim environment. If it was a Muslim environment, we could all pray at noon. But it's, you're asking me to accommodate that when I can't. Legally, uh, fairly, righteously, I can't. And he was between a rock and a hard place too, because he wanted to fulfill the tenets of Islam, the pillars, and yet found himself in a situation where he was unable to do so. So nothing there was persecution. Persecution is, I've seen reels where, like, this one woman started yelling at these Muslim women in the grocery store, telling them to go home, to leave the country and go back to their country. There are Muslims, lots of them, who were born here. Go back to your country. This is a Christian country. No, it isn't. And it never has been, by the way. Most of the people who, like the founding fathers, they spoke really against religion. I don't know what they believe personally, but at our 250th anniversary, we see people claiming their religion should be institutionalized across the country, which is, in fact, religious persecution to everybody else. Everybody else. And so it's not righteous. It's not righteous. Righteousness means you learn about your religion at home, you learn about your religion at church, you live your religion the best you can in the society in which you live, and you don't be a jerk. Don't be a jagoff. Don't impose on other people. What is righteous? Look, let's go down the list a little bit again, right? So it's quite simple. Poor in spirit, those who mourn, the meek, the merciful, the pure in heart, the peacemakers. And then if you draw some persecution, because of it, because you're that kind of person. You take some Jews or maybe gay friends. A lot of people don't realize this, but gay people were sent to the camps too. So were political dissidents, people who were considered racially inferior for other reasons, like Romani. Some people call them gypsies. I mean, whatever they thought, to not be white, to not be Aryan. And we have these Aryan people here in the United States. In fact, yesterday they marched on Washington wearing white masks. And, we want to make America white again. When was it white? In fact, when we got here, it wasn't white. When white people got here, there were other people already here. And without them, white people would have died very quickly here. So the superiority of the of the Aryan race is really doubtful. Okay, really doubtful. All right. Anyway, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and we all think we're right, but that doesn't mean that we're righteous. Righteous is a state of, it's certainly an attitude, but it's not an arrogant one. Read the list. It's not arrogant. It's not insistent. It's not offensive. And if you're persecuted because you're an offensive Christian, I hate to break it to you, you're being persecuted because you're offensive, not because you're a Christian. Just because you do it in the name of Christ doesn't mean that it's because you're religion. It means it's because you're offensive. In Pittsburgh, we say jag. So don't be a Christian jagoff. Be a Christian. In fact, I would love that. If Christians actually acted like Christians, I would love it. I'm sorry. If I've offended you, I apologize for what you're feeling right now. Not for what I've said, but for what you're feeling. It's my job to say it. There's a verse that says, not many of you should consider yourselves teachers. I do this with fear and trembling. I am very conscious about what I'm saying to you. And I know, because people who teach are actually, there's a different standard, and it's biblical. There's a different standard. They're held to a different standard. So when you see these ministers publicly fall because they've preached one thing and they've lived another way, that's a difficult thing. Now, nobody lives up to everything. And I'm not expecting you to either. Just keep in mind. I don't know what we're going to talk about next time. I want to do blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, which is the one thing that is unforgivable. I kind of want to do that. I don't know if I will go there next week or not. We Pentecostals, we don't have the lectionary. We don't know what Bible verses we're supposed to talk about. We just pray and ask God what's coming up. So I don't know. I know what I'd like. I don't know if that's what we'll do. Anyway, thanks for being with me. Thanks for spending this time. And have a wonderful Sunday. And I'll see you next week. Oh, I should say, if you're watching this anywhere that you can like it or subscribe, do. It helps. It helps. If you think you've benefited from this, it helps get that word out. That's how people like Facebook and YouTube know to send this to other people. All right. And I'm not monetized, so I don't care about the money. There's no money. Oh, it's ridiculous. Anyway, bye.